Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review The Mighty Ducks Game Changers. So, this is episode 10. I think this is actually the final episode of the season. Really, I think that this is like the finale. I could be wrong, but I think this one is the last one of the season. Supposedly, they are even talking about renewing this for a second season. Well, I guess this show might be a tax write off for Disney, but when also looking at it, when seeing that this show is actually trending on YouTube, that kind of can tell me, well, more than likely this show is going to get renewed. Because really looking at it from that perspective, I'm like, well, like if anything, like Batwoman bizarrely was one of those CW shows that everyone honestly did not like whatsoever, but it at least got renewed for a second season. And so, really, whether people like this show or not, more than likely the Mighty Ducks Game Changers might just get renewed for a second season, and then that will be done with this show. Really, I think, though, really people just like it when the Mighty Ducks are to be in some kind of part of this show in some way, shape, or form. Some people might like the way of which that this episode does end at the tail end of this episode. Uh, Really, I think that here's the goofy thing that now I'm going into, because I don't know how many times that I've complained about this, and people know if they've seen every single one of these reviews. I had consistently complained. I'm like, yeah, this is a hockey show that does not have enough hockey in it. Like, I complained about that endlessly. But it is kind of funny and hilarious in this episode. I'm like, man, there is so much hockey that there's absolutely no story, seemingly whatsoever, going on with it in this story. The only story that seems to be going on is Sophie's story, and that's it. Well, and like, of course, she only has the real true story because she has to. I do like the way of which that they are to go with eventually the ending of this episode, but uh, there are some kind of things that I think for either time or for whatever silly, stupid reason, there is some stuff that they, I guess, just had to finish up for this episode. Uh, that I thought was just kind of really. Uh, I like the fact that we really consistently have the don't bothers who have this mentality of like, well, winning isn't everything, or even playing a hockey game isn't everything. I think for a bulk of this show, that kind of feels obvious. I feel like they're trying to make up for like a lot of hockey footage that they didn't have in previous episodes. They try to heavily fuse into this episode because there wasn't much story. It was just like, well, let's just have a ton of hockey games in this one. And plus, a lot of this footage might have been like really and truly probably uh, quite possibly recycled, maybe from any number of any other footage that they used before and are now just using here. Uh, I I would say that really this episode doesn't really feel like an episode to me. It's basically just like, hey, this show is ending. See you maybe next season. Really, that's what this episode is. It doesn't feel like they get to anything in this episode. Yeah, they conclude things, but still, like, this is a nothing episode. Really, it's just them basically saying, hey, yeah, we're at States, and we're probably going to win because we're the people in this story, so shouldn't we have won? And And it basically goes that way. Or does it? Cryptically spelling this out, of course, but yeah, this show just does some goofy things. It just is a goofy show. Uh, Tying this on to Disney perfectly, yeah, goofy show, yeah. Definitely a tax write off for Disney because I can't see it being anything other than that. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to get into spoilers about this last episode because there honestly isn't much going on within this episode. There isn't honestly much going on. It's just, yeah. So, let's go into the, of course, double five time territory to maybe call the Mighty Ducks Game Changers Season 1 to a close, and then more than likely wait for whenever the heck that they're probably going to push out a second season. A lot of people overall probably are hoping for not a second season. They probably would hope that this would just be done and whatever. I think that they are probably going to probably put all the stops for the second season because I'm assuming they are probably going to dip this out into trying to almost be like Cobra Kai, where like in the first season there wasn't a lot of like surprises and whichever, but I think in the second season they're probably going to actually put into uh, having there much more surprises, some people from probably the films coming into this sequel to help somebody out or some other thing to where we might have Joshua Jackson come back and be a part of this show in the second season, but who knows? So yeah, going into this, I think let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this episode. So really, in between the large amount of hockey, which I can be happy about because I've said that numerous times, but like there is no story because of the hockey. It's like it's either they have to put story or hockey. They can't balance the two. It's hilarious. So we really have it to our bulk of this story that is in this episode. So basically, the very beginning of this episode is them making it to this stadium called the Minnesota Igloo, and making it there to say like, yeah, they're going into states, and so we have them going and playing, and of course the Don't Bothers are winning, and so we eventually have it to where the Don't Bothers are going to have to go up against the Mighty Ducks. And of course, like, yeah, of course, they're going to tailor make it to where the Mighty Ducks have to fight the Don't Bothers in a hockey match ring thing. And so we go on, and like there was some kind of like come from behind kind of victories for some of these, but then there was also some like 1-0 kind of games for the Don't Bothers. But we eventually get to the point of having both Alex and Bombay who couldn't sleep, and so they decide to go to the stadium and just kind of look at where they've come. And so Alex is one part of the stadium, Bombay is in one other part of the stadium. And so Alex is like, yeah, like, why are you on the other side of the stadium? How about, do you want to, like, come over here and sit next to me and, like, we could talk? And so, really, Alex and Bombay are just going, like, wow, how did we get here? Like, how do we, how did we make it here? So, pushing on to that, so we are to see in this episode that Sophie still needs a story in this show because you have to really focus on one player in this show. And also Sophie has to be dubbed the best player of the Don't Bothers because it's not a team sport. It's one player is just better than all the others. Isn't that great? So we have it to where Sophie had gotten a knee brace from Evan in a previous episode, and now bizarrely we have Sophie, who is really pushing on that knee, I guess, so hard, to where we are to find out that Sophie is really feeling her knee having a problem. And so we have it to where Evan is noticing like Sophie just having problems with her knee. And so we have um we have Evan who is like looking over Sophie and is just like, you know what, I need to say something to somebody. Like it's the right thing to do. Sophie is telling Evan not to say anything because they need to make it a state and they need to win, and uh and Sophie is like, yeah, like we gotta make it a state, we gotta win. And so, and plus two, if Sophie is to sit out, then the Don't Bothers have to forfeit their game because they don't have enough players. I'm like, well, in the second season they'll probably be scouting and finding a lot more other players. Uh, oh, also, Alex and Bombay. We had Alex when they were talking together. Alex was starting to think, since they could make it to state, Alex is thinking that quite possibly anything is possible now. Maybe Alex is thinking about going to law school and like trying to like spruce up her accolades. We have Bombay who's like, well, yeah, I remember about being a lawyer. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because remembering him in the first movie, like, yeah, he was a lawyer for a law firm. He was doing really well, but he ended up, of course, like quitting from Mr. Ducksworth's uh, law firm to eventually become a coach full time. So I thought that was kind of a nice little tidbit about like Bombay saying, well, yeah, like I was eventually a lawyer too. Like, yeah, he was. So going on, so uh, we have, uh, God, I'm just trying to think here. So we have Sophie. Her leg is bruised in all kinds of bizarre looking colors. So we have Evan who immediately goes to Alex and Bombay and is like, hey, there's something wrong with Sophie's knee and she's not telling anybody. And so also Evan has to go to Sophie's parents to let them know also. It's like, hey, your daughter's, her knee is just broken. She'll never skate again. That's what I think. I'm a doctor. So Sophie goes and has her knee get checked out by this doctor. And so this doctor is to basically say, well, this girl's knee's in pretty bad shape. Like, if anything, the wrong bump the right way could permanently stop her from ever skating again. And so we have Sophie's parents that are telling Sophie, like, well, hey, like, if anything, like, hockey isn't everything and winning isn't everything. Like, I just want to make sure that, like, you're going to be okay. And so, like, whatever that happens with hockey, like, let's put that off to the side because your health is, like, our most concern. And so we end up having Sophie, who is going with Evan, to go and talk to the team. And so Sophie is to still want to play for the Don't Bothers. And so we have Sophie who's like, well, I don't want to ride the bench. Like, I want to play. And so we have Evan who's like, well, you know what? Like, I'm not going to play with you hurt. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, I'm not going uh, to roll the dice to hope that you won't get injured while you play. So I am going to forfeit for us against the Ducks. So we have Evan who forfeits, and then the entire team all forfeits. And so we end up having the Mighty Ducks holding the trophy while Bombay and Alex are watching. the proceedings of the Mighty Ducks winning the trophy by forfeit because they don't have enough people. So we go on, and so we have Coach T, who is just boasting about how, like, yeah, like, we're winners, we're number one, like, isn't it great? We have Coach T, who is just rubbing it into the face of the Don't Bothers, and it's like, well, you just won via an asterisk, and you just won via technicality. You didn't really and truly beat us, so shut up. But we have the coach who's like, no, I just want to keep on boasting. Like, you guys don't have a trophy in your hands. Like, if anything, do you guys know an engraver for me to just be like, yeah, like, I'm the one with the trophy and you're not. So we eventually have the Don't Bothers who are like, you know what? How about we shut you up? How about we go on and we have an exhibition between you and our team? How about this? How about if the Don't Bothers lose, then the Don't Bothers will never be the Don't Bothers anymore, or even be in a hockey rink anymore. Like, they'll basically be donezo forever. And so, if the Don't Bothers are to win against the Mighty Ducks, the Don't Bothers get to keep the Mighty Ducks name. And so, I guess the Ducks have to change their name to some other thing. Maybe the Devils or the like some other goofy Ash like team. Maybe they'll be called the Don't Bothers. Maybe to put it in the grill of maybe they'll be called the Hawks. You never know. Like going back to the original Mighty Ducks movie, again, maybe we'll have some reminiscent things of the old movie because I don't think anybody who is at States was called the Hawks. So maybe the Mighty Ducks are going to be called the Hawks now. Who knows? Or they could just be called some other goofy name or whatever, called like the Piggly Wigglies or whatever the heck that they're going to be called. Because eventually, while the game is going on, we eventually have Coach T who's telling the Mighty Ducks, like, hey, like, come on, you guys, like, we need to win because if anything, we're gonna lose our name. What do you want to be called? Like the Sea Monkeys? Like, if anything, we're gonna lose our name. You know how hard it is to come up with a really cool team name? Because I guess the Mighty Ducks is a really, really cool team name. Sure. So we are to go on to have this exhibition go on with Sophie in crutches, making her way to the game to watch on. So we are to have uh, of course, this bizarre stare-off match between Bombay and Coach T. And so we have Alex who's like watching over them, like God, you guys are children. Like, come on. And so like Bombay is like, shush, I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to stare him down. What a stupid, goofy concept. But I guess that's usually what they do in every single one of the Mighty Ducks movies. They have this bizarre stare down between the two coaches, as if to say, like, yeah, like, I'm going to help my team win. Ha ha ha. Stare down contest. So we go on and we have this match between the Don't Bothers and the Mighty Ducks. So we go on and we seemingly have the Don't Bothers behind until the seemingly second half. So we have bizarrely this intermission, which rarely I've ever seen an intermission before, but I guess these people have an intermission. So we have the Don't Bothers uh, going into their locker room, and so we eventually have Alex who's like, well, hey, like, you know what, like, if we end up losing, like, if anything, we can just still have practices, like, we could still like just keep playing hockey in the rink, and Bombay's like, well, yeah, as long as you're like continuing to give me fees, like I don't care, whatever you want to do. So, but we eventually have the don't bothers who are starting to realize, like, you know what, I think it's time to really feel like give everyone a reason for why we are now all connected with this team, and like this team like has to stay together and has to win this. And so we end up having eventually Sophie, who is to like mention like why she's connected to this team, and all of a sudden everybody starts to stand up and mention why they are all like connected to the team and how they all felt like outcasts, but then eventually uh they all realize that like this team has been really good to them, and whatever. We have so many, like we have Logan who mentions about his family and how like horrible that is. Nick mentions how like this is like a family to him, blah blah blah. Coop mentions about his family things and how he was kind of disconnected from the world and whatever. So eventually we go on to have the whole entire uh we had the whole entire team that is just like kind of like really like connecting themselves and like telling them like, yeah, we're all a team. And so we eventually end up, after all of this rigmarole of like telling everybody what they've learned throughout this whole process, we have Bombay, who is giving every single one of the don't bothers a new set of jerseys. Every single one of the don't bothers are wearing the old Mighty Ducks jerseys. Funny enough, not all of them are wearing like some of them were wearing like Conways, and some of them were wearing Bankses, and all kinds of other like they're like they have names on the back of the jerseys, so it's like goofy, but it is what it is. Uh, and so we have it to where Bombay is giving them the traditional Mighty Ducks jerseys, and so they go on, and so we have them. They have the Mighty Ducks versus the Mighty Ducks, and Coach she's like, huh? And so it's like, yeah, it's like we're basically telling them that they're going to be Ducks no matter what, that they are going to win this, and so we have that as a scare tactic for Coach T and the real Mighty Ducks, and so we eventually have it at some point that Evan is to be called over by Sophie, and Sophie and Evan kiss. And Evan's like, oh, I guess we're doing that now, as he skates away. It's like, well, yeah, like, I guess out of all, like, Evan really caring about Sophie to the point of, like, her health comes before anything. Like, I guess won Sophie over to where they have a little peck on the lips for a second, and then Evan like skates off. Is like, so we go along, and of course, what do you think happens? Uh, the lime green Mighty Ducks beat the other Mighty Ducks. The Don't Bothers beat the Mighty Ducks, and so we have the Don't Bothers who are now changed to the Mighty Ducks, and they can keep the name. We have it to where Coach T is like, well, hey, like, how is this possible? Like, I'm not going to change the name. And uh, we end up having Alex's boss coming in and confirming it's like, well, like, technically, I can confirm that with this match sanctioned and everything by me, like, the change the change can happen. Like really, like all this was just exhibition or whatever, but the name can be changed. So now the Don't Bothers are now the Mighty Ducks, and so we have Bombay, who is to go through the rink and eventually have the logo of the home of the Mighty Ducks in the Ice Palace, which was great. Uh, like I think also Bombay was talking to Alex and was mentioning how she just so happened to bump into the Ice Palace and find it. And Alex said bizarrely that the Ice Palace was bizarrely like speaking to her, that she bizarrely needed to go in. And so like we have it to where everything was done by random chance. Uh But yeah, I think that's how the episode ends. I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.